Okay, in D&D, the Dwarven Fortitude feat lets you heal when you take the dodge action. Make that character a monk, and now you can do it as a bonus action, letting you really enhance your survivability. But just being hard to kill doesn't really make you a good tank, does it? However, if we combine all of that with the new grappling rules, then yeah, I think we can build a fantastic tank, and that's what we're going to do today. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody. So here at D4, every week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theory craft about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun, but also powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you like theory crafting, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, then hey, welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm so glad you're here, so thank you for watching. My name's Colby. Right, I think the most common suggestion that I get for a tank build since the beginning of this channel that I haven't done yet is this. Make a tank that's a dwarf who takes the Dwarven Fortitude feat so they can heal when they take the dodge action. Make them a monk so you can take the dodge action as a bonus action, and now you're really hard to kill, and you still have your action available every round, right? And on the surface, it feels like a pretty fun and cool little trick. Some nice synergy there. But I mean, there are a few problems with it that have prevented me from trying it out thus far. First off, the healing that you get from Dwarven Fortitude isn't amazing. You can do it once per round if you take the dodge action only, and can then use one of your hit dice to heal yourself. It's not terrible, but it's not a crazy huge heal, and you're spending a resource that you'd otherwise be able to use during a short rest to heal yourself anyways, right? Sure, healing during combat is more important. It might keep you alive when you otherwise would go down, so it's not nothing. And yeah, monks can dodge more easily than other classes thanks to their martial arts, right? But of course, monks don't exactly have the highest survivability otherwise. A mediocre at best AC, only a D8 hit die, but perhaps most damningly for the concept is this. Again, just being hard to kill doesn't make you a good tank. We've gone over this a billion times, I know, but yeah, if you're just running into a group of enemies, punching them a couple of times and then making yourself hard to hit, chances are enemies will just ignore you, and so all that survivability that you're trying to put together isn't really going to do anyone any good, right? But then the 2024 rules for D&D 5e came out, and with it, some things that make this concept a lot more compelling, and all of the changes have to do with the way grappling works now. In 2014, grappling an enemy simply reduced their speed to 0. That was pretty much it. But in 2024, a grappled enemy now has disadvantage on attacks against anyone but you. Holy cow. I mean, it was already a pretty good tanky move to grapple an enemy and just sort of keep them away from your squishy allies, right? But now, I mean, even if you have other melee allies nearby, or if your grappled enemy has a nice ranged attack, it won't matter. If they're grappled, they're essentially like soft taunted by you, right? Making it way more likely that they'll try and hit you instead of an ally with disadvantage. Add to this the fact that the grappler feat got a nice buff, and that thanks to how unarmed strikes work now, and thanks to the fact that monks can grapple with their dexterity now instead of just with their strength, right? And dexterity is more important for our armor class, and like all of a sudden, if we make this character a grappler, this concept of a dwarven monk dodger that's like a little extra difficult to kill gets a lot more interesting and viable as a tank, I think. So today, I'm finally going to take a stab at building this thing that some of you have been asking for years now. And I'm pretty excited to show you how it turns out. Ready to dive in? I proudly present D&D episode number 224, Monk Tank 2.0, The Dwarven Dodger, WrestleMania, The Dwonk, Andre the Giant Dwarf, pretty good one. The Dodge Wrangler, that's a really good one, actually. Dwarf the Rock Johnson? Less sure about that, but thanks as always to the fantastic suggestions from the Discord server. I think this week I need something just a little more basic that explains the concept, so let's just stick with the Grappler Tank. Huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for this build. I love what he's done here. It's like Jimmy's Superfly Sanuka in dwarf form. If you'd be interested in following Randall to check out the other stuff that he's done, or even, potentially reaching out to try and commission him to create some art for your character or even your entire party, I'll put links in the video description as always on how to do so. But first, welcome back to my bedroom. Every time I say that. Okay, so you've probably heard me talk about Helix mattresses, the sponsor for today's video by now. I've talked a lot about how much I love my mattress from them. It is truly the most comfortable mattress I have ever owned. That's helped me get rid of my lower back pain. It helps me stay cooler at night. You've probably also heard me talk about their mattress toppers. These are new. We've got one in our guest room right now, much to the delight of our guests and to our children when they decide to sleep there instead of their own rooms, which is all the time now because, my daughter in particular, my youngest, is always talking about how much she loves our mattress. Every time she lays down on it. I can't get her to just get off and go sleep in her own bed sometimes. So I decided recently to finally just pull the trigger and get her a Helix mattress of her own because, in case you didn't know, Helix has a Helix Kids line and it's pretty fantastic. They come in twin or full sizes, and my favorite part, they actually have two sides to each kids mattress. One that's a little firmer for kids that are like 7 and under, who tend to need a little more support, right? And then one side that's a little bit softer for older kids, and you can just flip it over when they're ready. My daughter's been sleeping on it for about a week now, and she loves it. I haven't heard her complain about how much nicer our bed is than hers ever since. But yeah, our bed is really the best because it is specially tailored for me, and yours would be tailored for you too because, with Helix, before you even order, you take the sleep quiz, help you figure out your body type and your sleep preferences so that you can get the perfect mattress for you. I'm a side sleeper. I like a softer mattress. I tend to sleep hot, so I got matched up with this Sunset Luxe. It's got a Outtakes cooling cover, which really does help keep me cool, actually. But there are 20 unique mattresses that they offer, and you should find out which one's the best for you. And right now is the best time to do just that because they are currently running an extended Labor Day deal where you can get 27% off anything on their site if you use my URL linked in the video description and the pinned comment. So please use that if you would when you check them out so they know I sent you and so that you can save some money. And as always, they have a 100-night sleep trial. So you have plenty of time to see if you like it. If you don't, which I have a hard time believing, but you can send it back, get a full refund. Their mattresses have a 10-year warranty, and they even have financing options and flexible payment plans if you decide that you do want to keep it and you need that option. Shipping is free in the US. It comes rolled up in a box delivered right to your doorstep. Super easy to set up. So stop putting it off. There's nothing to lose here and so very much to gain. All right, huge thanks to Helix. I really do love your products, and so does the rest of my family. All right, let's get back to the build. Okay, at level 1, for our starting class, believe it or not, we're actually going to start with Monk here. I almost went with a different class, but no, I think we are best off at level 1, just going with our main class today. I like having dexterity, saving, throw, proficiency for all the stuff that we're going to need to be dodging later. And our damage output will be better off this way too, though it will never be anything to really write home about. For our species, we're going dwarf, obviously, as that's a prerequisite for the aforementioned dwarven fortitude feat that we're trying to build around today. But dwarves are a great pick for a tank already, thanks to the extra hit point that they get per level, as well as the poison resistance. It's very nice. As for our background, I'm going to say, as always, take an old or a custom one, make it your own. But if you can't, farmer should work fine because it's going to give us the origin feat that we want, which is tough, of course. That just gives us an extra 2 hit points per level. So that's 3 more hit points per level now as a dwarf, right? That's pretty sweet. But then for our ability score increases, farmer doesn't get the job done. That's why I'd say go old or custom if you can, because I'd like to go 15 dexterity and a +2 there. A 15 con, a 12 wisdom +1, and then a 13 strength. We're going to need that strength for the aforementioned multi-classing, unfortunately, because it leaves us with a pretty crappy wisdom score, and as a monk, that makes us kind of sad. But dexterity and constitution will be a lot more important for this build if we care about our survivability above all, and that will become a little more apparent in a minute or so. But for now, let's move on. For starting equipment, one of the great things about being a monk is we don't need much. Pick your favorites or invest in the local stock market. But as a monk 1, we then get martial arts, which says that if we're unarmored, not using a shield, and wielding only monk weapons, which are simple melee weapons and martial melee weapons with the light property, then we can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action, use our martial arts die, a d6 for now, for the damage of our unarmed strikes and our monk weapons, and then also use our dexterity modifier instead of strength for those unarmed strikes and monk weapon attacks, including, importantly, for the DC when we grapple or shove with an unarmed strike. As a reminder, grappling has changed a lot in 5.24. Instead of making an athletics contest to try and grapple, we now simply have the target make a strength or dexterity save against our DC, which is 8 plus our proficiency bonus plus, for us, our dexterity modifier. And if they fail, they're grappled. On subsequent turns, instead of a save, they can use their action to make an athletics or acrobatics check, again, their choice, against that same DC to try and escape. The bad news with all of this for grapplers is that, yeah, it used to be a lot easier to make and maintain a grapple if you really built for it, right? Because you could get advantage on athletics checks and expertise in athletics, making it thus pretty easy to get a really high athletics check that would be almost impossible for most monsters to ever beat. That's not really the case anymore, but hey, at least as a monk, with all the unarmed strikes we get to make, grappling multiple times or making multiple grapple attempts every turn is a lot easier now, so that's something. Plus, grappling got buffed in other ways, like the disadvantage on attacks against others that I mentioned in the preamble, right? So maybe especially for this build, I think it's a net gain for us. We also get unarmored defense as a monk 1, which says that, again, if we're unarmored and unshielded, our AC equals 10 plus our dexterity modifier plus our wisdom modifier. And our wisdom modifier sucks, so that's crappy for us. But fear not, we have plans for better things. Speaking of better, nay, the best things, let me pause a second to give a quick shout out to my channel members and patrons. You guys are the best. I could not do what I do without you. Thank you so much for your support. If you're not a member or a patron, I'd love it if you'd consider becoming one. There's a button down there that says join. Just click on it or go to the Patreon link in the video description and you'll learn about all the little perks that I give to my channel members. I give all of my channel perks to all of my members so long as they just sign up at the silver tier or higher, and I just ask that you pay what you think it's worth and what you feel you can afford. Those perks include access to the library of write-ups that I make for each one of my builds, access to the community Discord server where you can help me name my builds among other things, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we have. If you can't or are not interested in supporting the channel in this way, being here, watching, liking, subscribing, all of the usual things are also great ways to help me, so thanks for doing those. Alright, at level 2, I think our monk is having a really hard time finding a state of inner peace. Something happens here to get their chakras out of alignment or something, because for some reason they're having some serious anger management issues. Alternatively, maybe the particular monastery to which our monk belongs teaches their students to embrace the rage within, to not be afraid of it, but to instead face it, embrace it, so that they can thereby channel it and use it. Maybe this is something unique to dwarves, who often have a reputation for having anger management issues, right? Whatever your reasons, we are taking barbarian levels now, and as a barbarian 1, we get the all-important feature Rage, which says that twice per day, and recovering 1 use with a short rest, we can, as a bonus action, tap into our inner fury to give ourselves extra damage on strength-based attacks. Womp womp. Maybe you'll get lucky and your DM will make an exception for you here and let them be dexterity-based as a monk barian, but more importantly for us, give us resistance to all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which is most of the damage we'll be taking. Very nice. Especially for someone who will never have an amazing AC, right? Rage also gives us advantage on strength checks and saves, too bad that doesn't help our grapples anymore, and also keeps us from casting or concentrating on spells, which is fine. I wasn't really planning on doing that anyways with this build. But Rage isn't the only reason that we want to be a barbarian with this character. One of the other main ones is for the better unarmored defense that barbarians get. Hang on a minute, you might be saying. We already have unarmored defense. And when you already have unarmored defense and multi-class into a class that also has it, you don't get it again. You're stuck with the first one you got. Au contraire, mon frère. That's how it was in 2014, yes, but in 2024, that particular rule got updated. Now we are simply told that, quote, we can choose one of the multiple features we have as a way to calculate armor class. And we would much rather have the Barbarians version, since this one lets our AC be equal to 10 plus our Dex modifier plus our Constitution modifier. And as a tank, who's going to be buffing Constitution as much as possible, especially as a raging Barbarian tank who gets almost double the mileage out of each hit point thanks to resistance, right? We care a lot more about Con than we do Wiz. Sorry, monk features. Kinda sucks, but this will be much better for our survivability, so I only feel a little bit bad about it. The thing I do feel pretty bad about, though, is the fact that we get weapon masteries as a Barbarian one as well, and as a character who will be dedicated to grappling, and since we need a free hand to grapple, and frankly I'd like to be grappling 2 targets as often as possible if my primary goal is to keep my allies safe while controlling my enemies, right? Yeah, I'm not planning on using any weapons on this character, especially since unarmed strikes don't require a hand to make, right? No reason we can't just knee him or headbutt our grappled target, despite not having a free hand, so that's cool. At level 3, we would be a Monk 2, and that means we get Monk's Focus. We get 1 focus point now per Monk level. They reset on a short rest, and we can use them to do one of 3 things. Flurry of Blows lets us spend a point to take 2 unarmed strikes instead of 1 with our bonus action. Step of the Wind lets us dash as a bonus action, and then if we spend a focus point, dash and disengage. And then there is the most important one for this build, Patient Defense, which says that we can disengage as a bonus action, but if we spend a focus point, disengage and take the dodge action as a bonus action. And just in case you needed a refresher, taking the dodge action simply gives all enemies disadvantage on all of their attacks against us until our next turn. We also have advantage on dexterity saving throws, pretty potent for survivability, which we greatly appreciate considering, again, our not so awesome AC. We also get unarmored movement here, which says that we have an extra 10 feet of speed if we're not wearing armor or using a shield. Handy if we want to be dragging grappled enemies around, especially. And then finally we get Uncanny Metabolism here, which says that once per day, when we roll initiative, we can recover all spent focus points and heal a number of hit points equal to our monk level plus a roll of our martial arts die. This is so good and was so needed for monks to thrive. At level 4, we would be a Monk 3. That means we get Deflect Attacks, which is another really nice tool to help with our survivability. It says that when we're hit with an attack that does bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, we can use our reaction to reduce that damage by a d10 plus our dexterity modifier plus our monk level. Alas, we only get 1 reaction per round, but this will be a nice way to take the sting off of a big hit. If we reduce the damage to 0 using this, we can spend a focus point to redirect the damage to someone else, though I don't generally think it's worth doing that unless you feel pretty confident that the 2 rolls of our martial arts die plus our dexterity modifier will be enough to finish them off if they fail their dex save against it. But then, yes, we get our subclass here as well, and I think the best route to take here is actually Mercy Monk. If we were starting the character at high level, I'd probably go Long Death instead, because they get a pretty sweet survivability feature, but it's not until Monk 11, and before that, Way of the Long Death doesn't do much for the build. Kensei has a nice way to increase your AC, so that would be great, but it requires that you're wielding a weapon, and I want both of our hands free so that we can grapple multiple enemies, like I've said, so yeah. All of this considered, I think Mercy's probably the way to go for survivability, at least until you get to the end game. As a Mercy Monk, though, we get Implements of Mercy, which just gives us proficiency in Insight and Medicine, and the Herbalism Kit. That's pretty nice, ribbon there. But then we also get Hand of Harm, which says that once per turn, when we deal damage with an unarmed strike, we can spend a focus point to add more necrotic damage equal to our martial arts die plus our wisdom modifier. Not a bad way to pile on a little bit more damage if we've got the focus points to burn. But more importantly, again, for this build, we get Hand of Healing here as well, which says that we can take a magic action and spend a focus point to touch a creature, including ourselves, and heal them for our martial arts die plus our wisdom modifier. Or, if we Flurry of Blows, we can replace one of the unarmed strikes to do the same thing. We're going to get some decent use out of this to help keep ourselves alive. At level 5, we'd be a monk 4. That means we get slow fall. This lets us use our reaction when we fall to reduce the damage by 5 times our monk level. Really cool when we need it. And then we get our first general feat. And yeah, I want to take Dwarven Fortitude since it's kind of the thing that I said we'd be building around today. So this feat is really nice. It raises our constitution by 1 to 16, much appreciated, and then says that if we're a dwarf, when we take the dodge action in combat, we can spend one of our hit dice to heal ourselves, just like if we were taking a short rest, right? So yeah, we add our constitution modifier to the roll as well. Alas, most of our hit dice are only d8s, but at least we've got that one juicy barbarian d12 there, right? So a couple of nice little in-combat heals that we've picked up now that should do good things to help us stay alive, especially when combined with the dodge action and our deflect attacks, and our resistance to all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage if we're raging. So at level 6, we'd be a monk 5. That means we get extra attack, so we can make 2 attacks instead of 1 when we take the attack action, meaning that with Flurry of Blows, we could actually make 4 grapple attempts on our turn now, in case the enemy just keeps making their saving throw, right? It's kind of nice. Again, the old grapple used to say you can replace one of your attacks from the attack action to try and grapple, right? Which would have limited us to just 2 attempts if we used both of our attacks from extra attack instead of 4. It's one more reason why I think monks make the best grapplers in D&D now. We also get Stunning Strike here, which says that if we hit our enemy with a monk weapon or an unarmed strike, we can spend a focus point to force them to make a constitution saving throw or be stunned until the beginning of our next turn. A fantastic debuff to be sticking on enemies, which we probably won't be succeeding on all that often considering our mediocre DC, thanks to our crappy wisdom score, plus the fact that constitution is still not a great saving throw to be targeting for most enemies. It's a little better now than it was under the 2014 rules, but yeah, still not great. Finally, don't forget that at this level, our martial arts die jumps up from a 1d6 to a 1d8. Okay, at level 6, it's time for our first damage report. So let's talk about combat tactics and survivability for our little dwarf dodger. Tactics-wise, we're basically going to want to just run up to our primary target on round 1 and rage as a bonus action, then use our action to attempt to grapple them. If we succeed right away, I'd try to drag them over to another nearby enemy and grapple them too with our second attack from extra attack, right? Keeping in mind that currently at least we would drag them at half speed. Once you've got the enemy or enemies that you want grappled though, on subsequent rounds, you're basically going to be using Flurry of Blows to either knee them in the face or re-grapple them if they've managed to escape, right? And keep in mind, even if they do manage to escape, which is generally going to be a little easier for enemies to do against a dedicated grappler in 2024, thanks to the changes I've mentioned, that's not necessarily a bad thing. They've wasted their entire action trying to get away from you, so it's still super effective. And not only that, but if they then tried to run away from you, you could just make an opportunity attack unarmed strike against them and re-grapple, assuming you hadn't used your reaction to deflect attacks anyway. But for the purposes of number crunching, yeah, I'm just going to calculate under the assumption that we've got our enemies grappled and we're using Flurry of Blows to punch and or grapple with one of our unarmed strikes and heal ourselves with the other, since we will surely be taking some damage. With our action, then, I'm going to take the dodge action. I know. The whole synergy here was being able to take the dodge action as a bonus action, right? But keep in mind, if we want to heal ourselves both with Flurry of Blows via Hand of Healing and with Dwarven Fortitude by taking the dodge action, this is the most economical way to do it. Otherwise, we're going to have to spend a key point both for Patient Defense as our bonus action, right? And for a Hand of Healing with our action. And we wouldn't even get to make an unarmed strike, which using Flurry of Blows instead allows for. Having the option to dodge and disengage as a bonus action is nice, if we really need it, but I don't know that we would all that often here. And of course, you could just do something else with your action, and make more attacks if you want, or sure, attacks with your action and then dodge and disengage with your bonus action because you prefer the heal from your hit die plus constitution modifier more than your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier, right? And you don't need both of them. I like having the options. I'm just going to assume, in the interest of exploring what's possible from a survivability standpoint, as always, that we're doing both every round over a 4-round combat encounter. What are we fighting? Well, for those who haven't seen one of my recent tank builds, here's a quick summary. I pit the tank against 3 scenarios. A deadly encounter dragon, deadly that is at this level, assuming a party of 4. I call this a boss fight. a deadly encounter group of like 3 or 4 bad guys, which I just call a typical fight, and then a level appropriate AoE spell, usually a fireball. For 4 rounds, those enemies just go all out on our hero, including breath weapons and legendary actions if they've got them, in an attempt to take us out. I assume we've got all of our resources available for the fight if we need them. We calculate then how much damage that we would take per round on average, and that's going to be our DTPR, damage taken per round, and how many hit points we would have left at the end of the 4 rounds, that's HPR, hit points remaining. Level 6, this means we're going up against a young blue dragon, then 3 trolls, and finally a DC 14 level 3 fireball. Just every round, fireball to the face. Now, here's something to consider. If we're taking the dodge action, doesn't that kind of ruin the point of giving our enemies disadvantage for attacking anyone other than us if we have them grappled? We're trying to put a taunt effect on them, right? Encourage them to attack us instead of our allies. If they have disadvantage on attacks against us too, which they will if we take the dodge action, then does that work against our goal? I'd say it kind of depends. Are they melee only enemies, or maybe ones with just a weak ranged option? If so, can you drag them away from your friends so that if they're grappled, they don't really have any choice but to attack you? If not, or if your melee allies have decided to attack the ones that you're grappling as well, here's hoping that their AC is higher than yours so that you're still an attractive target. And chances are your melee allies are going to have a better AC than you will. Otherwise, sure, feel free to just not take the dodge action and keep kneeing and headbutting them instead so that they don't then have disadvantage on attacks against you, right? I'm just going to calculate exactly how survivable we could be for these hypothetical situations if we were focused just on grappling and dodging and self-healing, and you make adjustments in game based on your situation as always. Cool? Okay. At the moment, we've got an AC of 16, though enemies have disadvantage on their attacks against us. Our total potential hit points that the enemies would have to burn through with our 18 Constitution, our Dwarf bonus, the Tough Feat, and both of our once per round self-heals would be, on average, 112 hit points, and that's not bad, especially since most of the damage the enemies do to us will be cut in half thanks to Rage. I'm also going to assume that we're using our reaction every round to deflect attacks on just one attack, right? Except for the round that the young blue dragon uses their breath weapon. Though, with our solid dexterity save and advantage on dex saves if we're dodging, I'm admittedly not too worried about that breath attack, especially later when we get evasion. Okay, under all of those assumptions then, against that boss fight, we would take 18 damage per round on average, and after 4 rounds, we would have 42 hit points remaining. In the typical fight, it would be 16 DTPR and 49 HPR, and against that fireball, it would be 15 DTPR and 50 HPR at the end of 4 rounds of fireball. And okay, you know what? That's better than I thought we'd be doing, if I'm being honest. We're keeping up with like the best survivor that I've built to date for 5.24, the Full Metal Abjurist. They're really outperforming us on the troll fight, but we're actually outpacing them on the fireball. I really thought that our 16 AC would be a bigger liability, but combined with giving disadvantage to attacks, and our once per round deflect attacks plus resistance to most of the damage from Rage, we're looking pretty solid. Even if we can't start dodging until round 2. And yeah, when I crunched numbers, I did not assume disadvantage on attacks for the first round. And this is kind of awesome. Let's see if we can keep it up. Okay, at level 7, I think we go back to Barbarian for a bit. I've got one main reason for doing so, which I'll discuss in a second. At this level, that means we'd be a Barbarian 2, and that means we get Danger Sense so we can have advantage on dexterity saving throws, which we already had if we were dodging. Okay, fine. At least we also get the Barbarian's best feature, right? Reckless Attack. Except it only gives us advantage on our attacks if we're using Strength for our attacks. Son of a... This is the worst level I ever have.
This is the worst launch I ever had.
Why are you even taking Barbarian levels? I mean, hey, at least we got another D12 hit die for self-healing purposes. Don't worry, we totally redeem ourselves at level 8, because then we'd be a Barbarian 3, and that means we get Primal Knowledge. It's not the main reason I'm here. It's some decent utility for strength-based characters, letting them use their strength bonus for a bunch of skill checks when raging. I mean, with our 13 strength, I guess it would be better for our just intimidation checks, at least, of the list that we get there. Anyways, no, we're excited because we get our Barbarian subclass here, and we want to be a giant Barbarian, in case you couldn't tell from all of the name suggestions from the Discord users. For one, because we're a dwarf with a Napoleon complex, but more importantly, because this would give us the Giant's Havoc feature, which says that when we rage, we automatically get an increased range of 5 feet, helpful for grappling when they're just out of reach, right? And more importantly, our size becomes large. And as all good grapplers know, being able to embiggen yourself is really important because we can only grapple creatures that are no more than one size larger than ourselves. Thankfully, young blue dragons are only large size, so we could have grappled them no problem at that level 6 damage report. But we are going to be running into huge enemies pretty soon, and if we want our soft taunt from grappling thing to work, we've got to get bigger. There are, of course, other ways to do this. Rune Knight fighters can, but I think we get more from Barbarian than from Fighter, what with a superior hit die, better unarmored defense, and damage reduction from Rage. You could also try drinking a Potion of Growth, or have an ally cast Enlarge Reduce on you, but I don't know if you're going to be able to do that at your table. Or you could just be a Goliath, of course. They can get to large size, but that would defeat the whole point of us trying to build around the Dwarven Fortitude feat now, wouldn't it? So, here we are. Oh, we also get Giant's Power here too, FYI, so that we learn the Giant language and the Druidcraft or Thaumaturgy cantrips for a little bit of utility. At level 9, I think we stay one more level of Barbarian because we really want another feat. And I think the feat that we take here is Grappler. It's a no-brainer to me. It lets us raise our Strength or Dexterity by 1. We'd want Dex, of course, to make that a nice even 18 now. But then also the feat says that when we hit with an unarmed strike, specifically as part of the attack action only, so not with flurry of blows, right? Kind of lame, but then we can both damage and grapple. Only once per turn, but that's nice. We also have advantage on attacks against enemies we have grappled, and don't have to spend extra move speed to drag a grappled creature if they're our size or smaller, at least, which will make it a lot easier to get to a second enemy. Just a lot of nice quality of life improvements for ourselves, plus a better grapple DC and a higher AC to ourselves thanks to it bumping our dexterity to 18, right? And yeah, I might have even wanted to take this feat before Dwarven Fortitude, honestly. You make the call. But this is all in time for our next damage report. Since last check, we have increased our armor class by 1, gained some better hit dice for Dwarven Fortitude healing, and otherwise just kind of gained a lot of improvements to help us pull off our tactics easier and against more enemies. We didn't gain a ton of survivability, but I think the things we did are important if we want to be the best grappler tank we can be. Our AC now is 17, and our total potential hit points that an enemy would have to burn through would be 155. Our boss fight here is an adult white dragon in their lair. That breath attack being a constitution save kind of sucks for us, but oh well. And yes, they're using all 4 of their legendary actions to attack us every round. Ouch. The typical fight is against 4 wyverns, and since a bunch of their damage is poison, I'm really glad we're a dwarf, since that means that we'll have resistance to all the damage they do. A happy coincidence there, but then the fireball that we're going up against is a DC 15 level 5 fireball. So, against the boss, on average, if they did nothing but just try and kill us all round, every round, we'd take 46 damage per round. And at the end of it all, we'd have a negative 28 hit points remaining. The typical fight was 30 DTPR and left us with 35 at the end. And then the fireball was 19 DTPR and 80 HPR at the end of it. Whew. Yeah, we do not like adult white dragons. But hey, at least we're not going down until the 4th round on that boss fight, right? If we can keep them grappled, our team should have no trouble taking them down in 4 rounds, right? Like, just as we go unconscious. Okay, again, we're doing pretty well. We're still beating other tanks who were also dying against that dragon, by the way, except for that OP Abjurist, who is outpacing us now against everything. But I'm thrilled that we're doing as well as we are here. Let's see how we do at tier 3. So, at level 10, yeah, I think it's time to get back to Monk, meaning we would be a Monk 6, and that gives us Empowered Strikes. This says that our unarmed strike damage can be force damage if we want, but then as a Mercy Monk, we also get Physician's Touch. This says that when we use Hand of Harm, we can also just give the poisoned condition to a creature. That's pretty fantastic. giving them disadvantage on all of their attacks now, whether they're grappled or we're dodging or not. Definitely make use of this, if you can afford the focus points and your enemy's not immune to the poisoned condition. But also, Hand of Healing now can end the blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned condition. That's really great support capability there. Drag your grappled enemies over to your ally and just reach out and touch them with your toe. Ding! No more blinded. I love it. Don't forget, our unarmored movement goes up to a plus 15 feet now, making dragging your enemies around that much easier. At level 11, we would be a monk 7, and that means we get evasion. I've really been looking forward to this for a while now, since it says that if we succeed on a dexterity save against something that would cause us to take half damage, like most dragon's breath attacks or fireballs, right? We'd take no damage instead, and then only half damage on a failed saving throw. It's so good. And then at level 12, we'd be a monk 8, which means we get another feat, and I'm a little bit torn on which route to go here, Constitution or Dexterity. I suppose in the interest of being as survivable as possible, sure, I'll bump Con, since that increases for us both our hit points and our AC, though capping Dexterity instead would help our AC, our damage, and more importantly, above all, I think our grapple DC, right? You do what you think is best. I'll just explore things from a survivability standpoint here. At level 13, we would be a monk 9, and that gives us acrobatic movement. This says that on our turn, we can run up vertical surfaces and across liquids. It looks really cool, and we get another focus point. And I mean, our proficiency bonus goes up, but that's all we get for this level. And now it's time for our next damage report, and I'm scared. Since last check, our AC has gone up to 18. We've bumped our Constitution for more hit points, 215 now total with self-heals included, picked up Evasion to really help out our Dexterity saving throws, and gained some utility and offensive and support features. But we're fighting an adult red dragon for the boss, you guys, in their lair. Eesh. And then 3 bandit crime lords and a DC 16 level 7 fireball. Okay, I'm not too worried about that one, but the rest? Well, let's see. Against the boss, we would take on average 49 damage per round, and at that rate, after 4 rounds, we'd still have 21 hit points remaining. The typical fight, though, is a little rougher. Our DTPR is 57, and the HPR is negative 13, and then the fireball is 2 damage, leaving us with 208 after 4 rounds. And you know what? That's better than I had initially thought. We laugh at fireballs, but we cry at 3 bandit crime lords. Youch. Yeah, and we're doing better versus that red dragon than we were against the white, thanks largely to the fact that the red dragon's breath attack is a dexterity one, right? And we've picked up evasion. But yeah, compared to other 5.24 tanks that I've done to date, at this level, we're in solid second place still. The Abjurist wizard tank is putting everyone else to shame, but hey, at least we're surviving until the last round here on every fight, or better, which means that we're doing our job, and I don't feel bad about it. Not at all. So let's see what happens in the end game. At level 14, we would be a monk 10, and that means we get heightened focus. This improves all 3 of our martial arts features. Flurry of Blows now makes 3 unarmed strikes, and that's awesome, both for damage and or if we really need more grapple attempts, right? Patient Defense now adds some temporary hit points when we dodge, equal to 2 rolls of our martial arts die, which is cool, but remember, we're using our action to dodge, not our bonus action, which I will continue to do, especially after next level. More on that in a sec. But again, if for whatever reason you'd rather take the dodge action as your bonus action, this will give you some temporary hit points now too. Step of the Wind now lets us bring a friend if we spend a focus point for the dashing. And I really kind of love the idea of like having a friend in one arm and an enemy in the other and just running around the battlefield with both of them for whatever reason. Now you two get along. Anyways, we also get self-restoration at this level too, which says that we can remove the charmed, frightened, or poisoned condition at the end of our turn. Super handy when we need it. Plus, we can't gain exhaustion by not eating or drinking. Probably less handy most of the time, but... Oh, and yeah, our unarmored movement goes up to plus 20 feet now, too. Pretty cool. At level 15, we would be a Monk 11, and that means we get, as a Mercy Monk, Flurry of Healing and Harm. Now, this is the level where, had we gone with Long Death Monk, we would have gotten the Mastery of Death feature, which is really cool. It lets us spend a focus point every time we drop to 0 hit points to instead drop to 1, and there's no action required to do this, nor limit to how often we can do it in a round, so it's pretty great, actually. I can just see us being at like 1 hit point and, getting wailed on 7 times by an ancient green dragon like we will be here in a minute, and just being like, nope, 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 nope. We have 11 focus points, right? Granted, we're probably using some of them during our turn, but that's a lot of just not dying. It would be pretty cool and kind of hilarious to see in game as you just refuse to go down. But again, I think we're a lot better off with Mercy Monk up until this point, survivability wise, which is most of the game. A lot of us will have stopped the campaign by this point, right? So yeah, no regrets, but if you're playing a one shot at level 15 or higher or something, yeah, go for it. Mercy Monks, though, like I said, get Flurry of Healing and Harm, and that tells us that our Hand of Harm no longer costs us an extra focus point, but better yet for us, all of our unarmed strikes with Hand of Healing can be used to heal us, and we get 3 of them now. Dang. Really makes me wish I had a higher wisdom modifier, especially since our martial arts die goes up to a D10 at this level too. This is a potential nice bump to our healing if we truly don't need to use any of those unarmed strikes to grapple with, right? Hard to know if we will. Seems like a bit of a stretch to just assume that every enemy will just always fail their grapple and just stay grappled every round. Let's go ahead and say we can use 2 of our 3 unarmed strikes every round to heal ourselves now. Even that might be generous, honestly, but the healing really isn't that much, so it's not going to have a huge impact on the numbers regardless. And this is still potentially better than making 2 attacks with our action and then spending a focus point for patient defense and getting 2 rolls of our martial arts die plus nothing, right? Though, I guess it depends on how many attacks you actually need. Anyways, again, having options is nice. At level 16, we would be a Monk 12. That means we get another feat, and sure, let's bump Constitution again, though you might rather max out Dexterity, but this would put our Con at 20. And then finally, for us, at level 17, we'd be a Monk 13, and that means we get Deflect Energy, which says that you can now use Deflect Attack against attacks that do any damage type, not just bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. That's cool, but they do still have to be attacks. You couldn't use this on like a fireball, right? Firebolt, sure, but yeah, they gotta be an attack. Okay, at level 17, it is time for our final damage report. Since last check, we have capped our Constitution, gotten 1 more bump to our AC to put it at 19, picked up a little extra self-heal when we Flurry of Heals, right? Including from a higher martial arts die, for what would be a total potential of 309 hit points. That's pretty great. And again, we've gained a little utility, a little offensive and support improvements as well. But at this level, we are facing off against an ancient, yes, ancient green dragon. Not in their lair, but still, their poison breath is a Constitution save again, which sucks, but at least we've got poison resistance. Then 4 ice devils, which are really, really nasty, and then a DC 17 meteor swarm, to which I say, bring it on. Oh, I guess I should note, ancient dragons are gargantuan, so even if we're large, we're not going to be able to grapple them. That sucks. Also, though, you've been playing this character and using these tactics for 17 levels. I'm seriously hoping that you've got access to a potion of growth to pull out when you really need it. I have to believe that most DMs would allow you to craft them or buy them if you don't just have an ally with like the Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron spell or something, right? Be sure to talk that over with them, of course. But anyways, at this point, against the boss, we would be taking 51 damage per round on average. Less than I thought, actually, and that would leave us with 104 hit points remaining at the end of a 4-round combat encounter. That typical fight, though, 94 DTPR for a negative 66 HPR. And the Meteor Swarm is 5 damage on average, leaving us with 290. Because, yeah, we even have resistance to the bludgeoning portion of Meteor Swarm, right? So that barely tickles, but man, those Ice Devils hit hard. There's 4 of them, making 3 attacks per turn each. Oh, and by the way, I realized when I was crunching numbers here for those Ice Devils that I miscalculated the damage for them on the last tank build that I did, the Treant Monk, right? The saving throw prioritizer. I'm going to try and get the spreadsheet updated to reflect that. They took a lot more damage than I initially calculated. Anyways, we're not doing so bad against the Ancient Green Dragon. Compared to other tanks at this level, we're still in second place, but it is a very solid second place. And I'm pretty pleased with it. So what are my final thoughts after putting this all together? The tier score for this build, if you take the hit points remaining against each enemy at each of the damage reports and just average it all into one big number, we end up with a 64. And if you would have told me that that's where we'd end up with our little unarmored monk selves before I started this, I would have laughed in your face. We start with a 16 AC and we only get up to 19. We don't have the shield spell, or any spells for that matter. We only ever have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and poison, I guess, which does help. But plenty of monsters were getting a bit of non-bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage on us, especially those Ice Devils. And yeah, consistently giving them disadvantage, plus healing ourselves a little every turn, plus a bit of damage reduction from deflect attacks, really made that like low for a tank AC not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. To be fair, yes, especially when swarmed by lots of hard-hitting enemies, they were taking us down eventually, but even then, we were hanging on for longer than I thought we would. Of course, yes, I am assuming that we're not having too hard a time making and keeping our grapples here. The truth is, especially against enemies with a strong strength or dex save and or athletics or acrobatics check, we'd often have to be using more of our unarmed strikes to try over and over to grapple them, right? Or like re-grapple them if they broke free. But I mean, with our, 17, 18 or whatever AC, is an enemy really going to waste their entire action trying to break out of our grapple if they can just hit us instead? Maybe they would. If they had disadvantage against us too. But guess what? That would actually be the best thing that could happen for our survivability, since it means we'd likely take no damage from them that round, except for the dragons who had legendary actions, but even then, the damage would be way reduced, right? And I mean, the truth is, our survivability wasn't dependent on us having them grappled at all anyways. That's what we were doing to try and protect our allies, right? Forcing disadvantage on attacks against them. And so, okay, they break away, they run over to our ally, all they have left is their bonus action, probably can't do much. On our turn, move over to them, grapple them, drag them away again. I think it would work really well against most enemies, right? The best laid plans of mice and men oft gone agley. But in the end, yeah, I think this character could actually make a pretty dang good tank. You'd likely want to prioritize getting that dex up quicker and capping it first over con, I think, since grappling is so important to the build, and our survivability is pretty solid. But I mean, the build doesn't use a ton of resources in the fight. It does a little bit of damage. It also brings some decent support and utility to the party as well. I think it'd be a lot of fun to play. Keeping your party safe from at least 2 baddies every round and being able to just lock them down to near uselessness as they spend all of their time trying to take you out while you dodge, deflect, and just keep healing yourself over and over. They'd get so frustrated. And you would just laugh your haughty dwarven laugh while you wrestled them into submission. But that's the build for the week, and I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. I always do. But I always also love you guys. You're the best. Thank you for watching, for all that you do to support me, the channel. I hope you have a really great day and a fantastic week. And if you don't, please don't give up. Hang in there. You can do this. I know you can. I hope that you will do good and that you will be kind. And that I see you again very, very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. We talked until 2, and then she said, it's time for bed. She told me she worked in the morning and started to laugh. I told her I didn't and crawled out to sleep in the bath. And when I awoke, I was alone. This bird had flown. So I lit the fire, isn't it good? Norwegian wood. Favorite Beatles album? How's that for a question? I bet most people would say Sgt. Pepper's or the White Album or maybe even Abbey Road. But for me, I think it's got to be Rubber Soul. I don't know. I just really love about every song on that album. I mean, I really love about every song on all their albums, with a few exceptions. But that one, for some reason, sticks out as a favorite. But to try and build something, well, I think after 5 years I would remember my own intro. I'm a little tarted up today, aren't I? Yeah, I had to record the Holzkern ad for last week first, and then I just kind of decided, you know what, screw it. I'll be a little fancy lad. I'll be a fancy dwarf wrestler. Ric Flair? Yeah. For our starting clap. Decent chance that we'll be able to well, don't even say that because I might have used the... Yeah. That should... from all of the name. But I'm thrilled that we're doing as well as we are. That's really great support. That's really great. Wow. They've got,